Yeah. Now let's go.
Ghosts of Mars explored in detail. John Carpenter's undervalued space horror B-movie classic. The legacy of John Howard Carpenter needs no introduction. In terms of commercial success, Carpenter has always been an unsung hero, but his works have inspired a generation of directors, including the likes of Quentin Tarantino. He might not be as popular or successful as Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese, but his cult following is no less. It's unfortunate that many of his iconic movies did not receive their due appreciation upon release and were only appreciated with time. It would be wrong to try to define this legend by his Oscar success or box office records because his movies were all about breaking the tradition. He dared to venture into uncharted territories with films like Halloween, The Thing, Escape from New York, They Live, and many others that redefined horror and slasher flicks. Carpenter's best quality as a director was to generate an air of paranoia and create suspense through simple moments. Today's brand of new directors is influenced by his works, and he is now hailed as a horror icon with some terribly undervalued movies. Speaking of undervalued films, how can we forget the space horror B-movie classic Ghosts of Mars? It was misunderstood and trashed by critics and audiences alike. Indeed, various aspects of the movie, like the campy special effects and the stiff acting performances, deserve the flack the film received. However, there is more to this film than meets the eye, and in this video we will tell you all about this underrated gem by the veteran director.
Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin.
First, let's explore the story of Ghosts of Mars in detail. The plot takes place in the latter half of the 22nd century, where the atmosphere of Mars has been modified to a great extent in order to suit human life. It has become the manifest destiny of an overpopulated Earth, and people live and work all over Mars, even mining the planet for natural resources. People can now walk on the surface without using pressure suits, and the Martian society is a matriarchal one with women holding most of the positions of authority. Lieutenant Melanie Ballard, played by Natasha Henstridge, is a police officer who's sent to a mining outpost to supervise the transportation of a notorious prisoner, James Williams, played by Ice Cube. Yet upon her team's arrival, Melanie discovers that something strange has happened and the people of the region are missing. She learns that these people had discovered a secret underground doorway that was created by the ancient Martian civilization. The portal released the spirits or ghosts that possessed the miners. These workers then committed horrific acts of violence and self-mutilation. Things take an ugly turn when team leader Helena Braddock, played by Pam Grier, is murdered. Now Melanie has to take command and fight off the zombie-like possessed miners. To add to their woes, when a possessed miner is killed, the spirit merely goes on to possess another human, and the team finally resorts to blowing up a nuclear reactor in a bid to destroy all the ghosts. In the violent clashes that erupt, Ballard's entire crew is wiped out by possessed miners. Melanie herself almost gets possessed, though a drug helps her avoid this fate. She realizes that the ghosts of Mars are attacking because they think of the humans as invaders and intend to eliminate any trace of human life on the planet. With just the prisoner and Melanie left alive, Williams tries to avoid being blamed for the massacre and attempts escape. Melanie manages to return home, but her seniors do not seem to buy her outrageous report of what happened out at the outpost. As she's recovering in the hospital, the ghosts attack the city, and we learn that the nuclear explosion failed to destroy them. Now Williams and Ballard must fight together to survive, forgetting their past enmity.
I know you better let go of my...
Who is in charge here?
You!
It was going to be an Escape from LA sequel. If you've watched Escape from LA, the post-apocalyptic thriller by John Carpenter, you would know that the ending showed the world in disarray. It was a sequel to the cult favorite Escape from New York, and the climax portrayed a world without technology where there was widespread chaos. John Carpenter and actor Kurt Russell had future plans for the iconic character of Snake Plissken, the protagonist of films Escape from New York and Escape from LA. The duo even commented on the possibility of a third film in the series, which had a potential title of Escape from Earth. They felt that it was only reasonable that Snake Plissken had to leave the planet the next time around. Unfortunately, Escape from LA was a box office failure, and this stalled the future plans for the franchise for the time being. A few years later, rumors were going around about Paramount trying to resurrect the series with another apocalyptic drama titled Escape from Earth. Fans believed that this would connect the dots and the future of Snake Plissken would be detailed within this movie. However, these rumors were never validated and eventually died out. Ghosts of Mars is somewhat of an edited sequel to the series. In fact, it's believed that the script for the sequel to Escape from LA was repurposed and used for Ghosts of Mars. The film was originally supposed to be called Escape from Mars, but the failure of the previous film prompted a change in the title. We even heard information that led us to believe that the character of Snake Plissken was written out of the script as a direct result of LA's poor reception. This brought about a repackaged project where Snake was replaced by James Desolation Williams, played by Ice Cube. Jason Statham, a British newcomer, was initially considered for the role of James Williams, but the producers wanted Ice Cube because of his popularity. He had already tasted success in movies like Anaconda and Friday and was preferred for his ability to ace the action sequences. However, today Statham is a well-established action star who has delivered several hits. The similarities between James Desolation Williams and Snake Plissken are pretty obvious. Even the outfit is a knockoff, prompting many to confirm their suspicions that this was formerly supposed to be Escape from Mars. The role of the junkie cop, Lieutenant Melanie Ballard, was supposed to go to Courtney Love and not Natasha Henstridge. While we don't know for sure what got her off the project, rumors suggested that it could have been the result of a broken foot. Other stories suggest that Love was not up to the task and her efforts were found lacking, leading to her replacement. Henstridge's boyfriend already had a role in the movie, and he had suggested her name for Melanie's character. She was on board just a week before the production process took off. As for the Martian ghost, the credit goes to John Carpenter for adding this bit. He felt the need for something unique after his favorite character was no longer involved in the project. The concept artwork was created by John Eaves, who was also the concept artist for Star Trek. There's enough evidence to suggest that the script was reworked from an existing story. The probable source is a British film called Quatermass and the Pit, written by Nigel Neal, an author whose works were admired by John Carpenter. The two had even worked together for movies like Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. To avoid potential lawsuits, there were enough alterations made by Carpenter, but the similarity in the storyline is hard to miss. You could say that the final movie was a combination of his previous plans for a sequel to Escape from LA and the story behind the British film. While this movie turned out to be awesome, we cannot help but wonder if the success of Escape from LA would have meant Snake Plissken fighting the Martian ghosts instead of James Williams. Wouldn't that have been out of this world?
Any questions?
The cast is filled with amazing, badass, cheesy actors. A cast comprising of cult heroes is not necessarily one that delivers solid acting performances across the board. The presence of Ice Cube, Joanna Cassidy, Jason Statham, and Pam Grier promised more than was eventually delivered. The actors were probably confused about whether to treat this as a serious movie or something that is intended as a parody of a conventional sci-fi action flick. They were stiff and restricted in the final edit, often delivering laughable performances that the audiences ripped apart. Natasha Henstridge is the main character, leading the expedition to the mining outpost called Shining Canyon. The group soon discovers that desolation is not the most dangerous thing out there and an unthinkable horror awaits them. Could Courtney Love have been a better choice as the protagonist? Well, we never got to find out, as her foot was run over by the ex-wife of her boyfriend. She surely would have been a perfect fit for the role, considering her performances in movies like Man on the Moon and The People vs. Larry Flint. The acting in the film has been heavily criticized, and despite the best efforts of the cast, it really is hard to take the characters seriously at times. John Carpenter used several elements from his own works. If you analyze the narrative of Ghosts of Mars, it almost appears to be a smoothie comprised of Carpenter's favorite things. If you've watched the director's other works, you'll find an uncanny resemblance between the creepy creatures in Prince of Darkness and the possessed miners. The body horror, too, is bound to remind you of The Thing. From the peppy music to the action, Ghosts of Mars bears all the signs of a typical Carpenter work. John Carpenter took the violence to the next level. A John Carpenter movie without violence is like a burger without the patty. While he often uses suspense rather than gore, there's always at least one disturbing scene with loads of bloodshed. Ghosts of Mars is no exception, and given the plot, the violence is pretty justified. It starts off as the spirits of long-dead Martians use human bodies as hosts. The possessed humans are determined to exterminate the human population on Mars, seeing them as invaders who took over their land. It's only fitting that they would resort to the worst form of violence, seeking sheer vengeance. We see them decapitating their victims or ripping off their arms and other limbs, and they even seem to enjoy their actions. The frisbee-type thing that they use is a potent weapon, never offering much of a chance of defense to the opponent. Their improvised swords also delivered some significant damage, and there are some scenes that are just not meant for the squeamish. One particular scene that deserves mention is where Pam Grier's head is mounted on a spike, though many other members of the cast got some gruesome deaths too. However, the combat scenes could have been handled better than they were. At times, it looked like a mosh pit in a rock concert where two groups fight it out. As the possessed miners mutilated themselves, striking needles across their faces, we were thoroughly reminded of Hellraiser. The self-administered cuts and the fact that the creatures take pleasure from pain did recall memories of the dreaded Cenobites. The special effects were found lacking in Ghosts of Mars, but they did not hold back when highlighting these gory moments. Some critics have felt that such sequences were hints of the midlife crisis the famed director was experiencing, but we beg to differ. He purposefully took the violence to the next level, because the premise of the film did not allow for them to be normal. You surely couldn't expect demons of Mars to behave like the usual villain from Earth. No matter how much people criticize the movie, the action scenes and grotesque violence stand out for us, and we appreciate the out-of-the-box thinking that went into these aspects. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's easy to dismiss a movie for not being perfect, but we must analyze what exactly went wrong. It's not that the entire film was trashy, because there were some moments that helped to detain cult status over the years. The concept was pretty unique, and there was a perspective suggesting that the humans were in the wrong here. They were the invaders, and the Ghosts of Mars were simply trying to reclaim what was theirs. Much like Starship Troopers, the human side doesn't deserve much sympathy if you look at the broader picture. The sets looked impeccable, and the lighting did make it feel like another planet. The filmmakers used a gypsum mine in New Mexico to portray Mars, and the look of the planet was definitely one of the highlights of the movie. Gallons of food coloring was used to stain the rocks red so that they resembled those of the planet, and the exterior shots look particularly terrific at night. The violence, as we said, was necessary and used to a good effect. The suspense never dies throughout the film's runtime, and every moment is full of surprises as the viewer watches with bated breath, anticipating the worst. There were some clever plot twists, such as the one exploring Ballard's drug problem. We thought that it was some random throwaway plot point, but later when she's possessed, we see the purpose of her addiction. Someone pops a pill in her mouth, and she escapes the terrible possession. Her drug trips and visions did make for some beautiful psychedelic scenes in the middle of all the madness. But of course, the movie has some glaring loopholes that shouldn't have been ignored. One of the main things that struck us was the maniacal shooting at the possessed miners. Sure, it looked cool when Ice Cube and his fellow comrades launched a flurry of bullets at the opponent, but you have to remember here that the spirits were able to immediately take control of another body when their current host was destroyed. So it doesn't make any sense to shoot relentlessly at the hordes of possessed guys that come along. It would be less risky to shoot them in the legs or the arms, but the protagonists paid little attention to this. In fact, Desolation brought this up at one point, but the very next moment we see them shooting at the enemy like they have an endless supply of ammo. Why does Ghosts of Mars deserve attention by B-movie lovers? If you're a fan of John Carpenter or B-movies in general, this film won't disappoint you. We have already spoken about the positives of the movie, and here are a few more reasons for you to watch it. If the movie was made in the 80s, it would have been regarded as one of the best works by a brilliant director. The timing, however, ruined things and made it feel out of place. It's a well-disguised siege story where the director nurtures the settlers versus natives debate. The natives are portrayed as savage beasts that must be wiped out, and this makes the movie sickly fascinating. The characters do not mince words when they speak about their intentions to dominate the planet. The innovative use of this concept is where Ghosts of Mars succeeds. The human hosts are made to look pretty entertaining, somewhat of a mix between zombies and murderous Vikings. The bizarre body modifications and mutilations, the choice of weapons, and the unrestrained violence all contribute to the film's entertainment value. Every time a human host is killed, the audience is left in a nail-biting moment as they wait to see who the next victim to be possessed will be. This tension-filled atmosphere is where Carpenter recalls the golden touch that he had used once to make classics like The Thing. The CGI in this movie is pathetic, and the special effects are disappointing considering the film was made in a time when technology in this area was rapidly advancing. However, we'll stand up for the effects simply because they have aged well. The model sets, the practical effects, and the raw feel to the scenes are still defended by the B-movie lovers as a nice throwback to a golden era. Yes, the narrative is repetitive after a point and it feels like a long-drawn slog, but just for the glimpses of brilliance, this movie is worth a watch for all B-movie lovers out there.
Let's just kick some ass.
It's what we do best.
Our final words. Ghosts of Mars has been battered by some brutal reviews and the response has been largely negative. Critics called it a schlocky, sluggish shoot-'em-up flick with no comprehensive plot, and Carpenter was criticized for having fallen from his own high standards. Even Ice Cube was critical of the movie and later said that he was part of the project only because of the director's reputation. The director, however, had a response to all the hostile criticism. He said that he intentionally made it over the top, adding some tongue-in-cheek humor as he just wanted to create an entertaining action flick which was purposely silly and campy. His reference points were 80s blockbusters like Commando, Predator, and Rambo First Blood Part 2, where the characters and plot come off as a bit silly without becoming a full-fledged comedy. When others do it, people appreciate and say it's a work well done, but when John Carpenter tries his hand, criticisms pour in. You see the hypocrisy here, don't you? If you take our advice on this, you should try this movie out with an open mind. We've covered the flaws, but that doesn't make it any less entertaining. It didn't become a cult classic for nothing, and you just have to leave your judgmental self behind to appreciate the excellence of this film. The ending is somewhat open to interpretation and points at a potential sequel. If only this had been a commercial hit, we could have seen Desolation Williams team up with Ballard to fight the possessed beasts. Wouldn't that be a pretty sight, watching them wield their shiny machine guns and head into another apocalypse?
This is all the time we had for today's episode. We hope you guys liked it. It would be awesome if you guys can take some time to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us which topic you want us to cover in the comment section. Have a fantastic day ahead and stay safe.
See you later, you big motherfucker.